Good afternoon, all. Thanks for sticking with us to the very bitter end. I'm sure it was for me you stayed, not the free lunch. My colleagues in Westcoast asked me to come in today and talk to you about cloud. So before I get into my presentation itself, can I throw a question out to the room? What is cloud to you? For me, cloud really came into fruition with the formation of iOS. But what is it really? It's an always-on system. It's available at 365. It's an intuitive system. We've all seen videos of kids playing with iPads, seamlessly navigating around the device itself. And then when you swap it out for a magazine, they start freaking out that like there's something wrong. This is now the generation that we're having to deal with growing up, and their expectations are evolving as we're giving them new tools. It's also about choice for me. There are now billions of applications out there, and people want to be able to choose. Some are good, some are great, and some we simply can't live without now. But behind it all, what is really making it all tick? It's a fully automated and orchestrated environment. But then again, nobody cares how the sausage is made. They just want the product. It's about the application. So I think you'd agree with me. Cloud is pretty cool. You might think that networking isn't that cool. It's like we've seen some evolution within the enterprise in around server virtualization and storage virtualization with the likes of Hyper-V and VMware. But we've heard a great story about being able to spin up a VM in 2 minutes. But then when you go to your networking team and your security team, it's like the 2 minutes turns into 2 months quite rapidly. So you'd be right in thinking, that's not cool. That's getting in the way of the fun stuff in my eyes. So what do people traditionally use networks for? It's really centered around this guy here, the cable itself, connecting the all singing, all dancing storage array and server together. And usually plugging it into something like this, just a switch. It's like, again, functional, but again, you could be forgiven for thinking networking is not cool. For me, this cable represents so much more. It's a connection to the cloud itself. It's the gateway. Every other presentation today was absolutely residing in the cloud itself. It's like, but can I ask, where do your customers reside? Do they reside in the cloud? Or are they physically on the ground with us? So we still need infrastructure actually to provide the level of service that we're looking for to be able to connect to the cloud. We're also seeing a huge remit or a volume of new devices coming out of the market, Internet of Things, all connected, and all with elements of cloud built into them. They've got reduced storage capacity on them, and they might share some more storage online. We also have the applications fully residing in the cloud that we're talking about today, like Office 365, Skype for Business, YouTube for education and just downtime, whatever, Facebook for sharing your entire life on. But what do the devices have in common again? It's not that cable that I've shown you first of all, it's that they're all Wi-Fi enabled. We're even looking at a stage where the next time you go out and buy a fridge potentially, that you're going to see a Wi-Fi card built into it. It's going to start monitoring what's in your fridge. It's going to start talking to Tesco down the road. It's going to start placing orders for milk all by itself. So it's very important to be able to fingerprint these devices as they come onto our networks, be able to profile their traffic, and be able to mitigate the risks associated with this new software coming onto our networks that we have to trust. So when our fridge starts behaving like a PC, we want to be able to kick it off. It's like quarantine it immediately, all automated and orchestrated. We don't want to have something sitting there potentially causing us downtime and threatening our business. So why do resellers trust Aruba? It's for these solutions that we've got here. On the access level itself, we've got probably the broadest AC portfolio on the market, ranging from very moderate density all the way up to very extreme high density solutions. We've got multi-gig SDN switches. Is anyone familiar with the term SDN, out of curiosity? Show of hands. This again is going to be absolutely fundamental in the future. Technologies like VXLAN, being able to extend your data center. If we're talking about putting DR in the cloud and business continuity and having active scenarios where you can spin up and spin down, can you re-IP easily in the cloud? No, there's still human intervention required really today, for the most part. Certainly most customers I talk to. But the types of technologies built into our switches like VXLAN, we can extend directly to the cloud and share that same IP range. So we can use vMotion to fall over directly into it. Having the multi-gig functionality built into this as well is absolutely phenomenal for, I would say, the majority of your customers. I would say they've got Cat5e cabling in. What's the speed limitation of that? Does anyone know? It's generally 1 gig. That's great and all, but when we're looking at where the networks are going in total, it's like you have to start considering how long is this going to be appropriate for me. We've got 4G available today. I looked up the speeds to see what they were averaging out today, and it was showing for 3 network in particular, it was 11 meg per second. I was like, yeah, that's great. You can work on that right now. What about 5G? They're currently standardizing and ratifying the standard. Does anyone have an idea of what we're talking about ratifying it at? Would it be 100 meg? A gig? It's 10 gigabit to the mobile device. We're going to be walking around with our pocket within the next couple of years. You might be wondering why. What is this needed for? Autonomous vehicles. When we're looking at Google driving around their cars automatically, being able to read where people are walking, a kid steps out in the middle of the road, it needs to be able to react very fast. So it's going to change the way that applications are written. What this is doing is it's enabling you to sweat out these cable assets effectively. It costs a lot of money to put new cables in. We can deliver 1, 2.5, and 5 gig all over Cat5e cabling today. Pretty cool. In around the security side, does anyone talk to the customers about BYOD? Yeah, couple. Again, it's a complicated one. It's like, where does the level of control start and stop? How do you mitigate the risk of someone data leakage, etc.? We've got a product called ClearPass that will work in a vendor-agnostic point of view. It will work in any network. The different levels of integration are dependent on what those individual infrastructure providers can actually supply. Like one thing that we're looking at with a lot of customers at the moment would be integrating into the likes of a Palo Alto device, next generation firewall. We can have full application visibility coming in and out of the network. That's cool. It's like, we can see malware straight away and block it with Palo Alto. It's like, that's nice. What about me as an end user? I like to download illegal movies. One of my colleagues says, you wouldn't have a copy of that. It's like, I would on my USB actually. I pop it into my USB stick, or they pop it into theirs. They're already on our network that's authenticated. What happens? That malware would dissipate around the network. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to integrate into a next generation firewall and share that same intelligence back internally in the network? With ClearPass, again, we can give the instructions via the likes of a Palo Alto into the switches, into the access points themselves, and mitigate the risk. Bounce them off the network and say, oh, by the way, you've been infected by this particular virus. We've quarantined your machine. You can have internet access until IT will be in contact with you. We've already raised a ticket. These are the types of solutions we're working on with customers, and as a result, making the networks more secure. Again, guest access would be a huge one. Today, how many people got on the Wi-Fi out of curiosity? But happy. Was there any reason why the rest of you didn't get on the Wi-Fi? Was it because you had good coverage on the mobile phone, or was it because you had to type in something into it? Password related? Yeah. Wouldn't it be nice? And for a hotel, wouldn't they be interested in to know who you and I are? Having a better guest experience, effectively. Self-registration is what I'm really talking about. Just being able to input in my details and have a challenge and accept. So I'm not saying I'm John Doe at fu.com and getting on the network, just spoofing them effectively. Wouldn't it be nice to send me a text message to prove that I'm who I say I am? Or have sponsored guest access. I'm in to visit a particular client. Why not send them an automatic email that I've arrived in reception and get them to say, yes, that they're good to come on the network. From an auditing point of view, this is absolutely fundamental, that we can say, this person was on the network for this amount of time, this is what they accessed. So giving that application visibility, leading onto the next point, and giving quality of service across these different apps. Because let's face it, we're talking about moving everything off premise. We're putting a lot of strain on our networks. How do you prioritize today business critical applications if they're going to run over Wi-Fi? One of the more exciting points that might be relevant to some of you is this wayfinding that we've got here, location-based services. I've got a customer, well, I don't have a customer myself, but Aruba do, over in the US, who put this into the Levi Stadium. It's all around monetizing of the network, how to engage with people better, the likes of gathering more contact details and be able to market back out to them. Levi Stadium were the host of the Super Bowl last year. We had 27,000 unique people on the Wi-Fi in this one game. 23,000 of them were on concurrently. We shifted over 10 terabytes of data across it. But so what? It's like, that's cool. It's great to hear. It's like, how do they make money? Via in-application purchases. We plugged into all of the individual stores in around the grounds itself, which automatically updated around stock. So if something wasn't available, it would say, that's not available, you can't order it. And we had a 40% adoption the first year alone. We saw an average of $212 per application being purchased of in-app purchases. They made over $1 million in one day, additional revenue. So these are the types of conversations I go out and talk to people about. It's going to cost you $100,000 to put in a nice new network. It's not about being able to secure it more. It's about how to make money from it. It's like in an establishment such as this, where we have a lot of footfall coming through. This is a database I would want to have, Google would want to have, Facebook would want to have. They'll pay $5 a pop for each one of our details, so they can target us as well. How do we do this? We've got a patented technology called Client Match. As we all come into a business, you've sold them a Wi-Fi solution. They authenticate the first day, it's all good. It's like they associate with the correct clients because it's your client device that decides what it's going to connect to. It doesn't want to break that relationship until it can no longer talk to it. So what Client Match does is that actually starts monitoring where everyone's devices are, where they're moving to, and it starts talking amongst themselves, breaks the connections with a weaker AP all of a sudden, and reconnects you back out to a more suitable one. It can spot the differences in generations of phones, devices, laptops, who can talk faster, who can talk slower. It gives the slower devices more time to talk, so we can actually see a 10 times performance increase with our technologies. Interference itself is an interesting one. We've all got customers in the cities where you could have multiple Wi-Fi overlaps. It's like neighboring buildings would be spilling into ours, etc. Wouldn't it be nice if the network could detect this and move itself to a better channel? Again, with Client Match we can. Just to give you a brief overview of the different range of solutions here. We've got our 200 series, which would be classes of moderate AP. I would say this would be our bread and butter, really. It's perfect for the Irish market. We can have 50 active connections on a single AP. And all of these feature-rich application-aware features. If you wanted to block your employees from liking something on Facebook, but allowing them to go on Facebook, we can give that granular level of control. I briefly touched on the SDN switching and multi-gig. I'm being shooed off here, sorry. Again, this is touching into the application RF, being able to prioritize the likes for Skype for Business, because this is going to be absolutely key for as people move off-premise and into the cloud, that we want to be able to give the correct applications priority, so that someone watching YouTube in 4K, monopolizing 12 megabits per second of their bandwidth, that gets pushed down and auto-negotiates down to a standard definition. Again, we've got a full range of cloud controllers that we're consolidating down the number of devices that are actually required to manage. We've got switches, routers, firewalls, all being pushed down into a single device with PoE and manageable via the internet. To bring the circle whole, our cloud management tool is Aruba Central. Again, we've got zero-touch provisioning. For customers with lots of sites, we want to be able to push out configs without actually going out outside. Just plug it in. We can set up the config beforehand, and it'll automatically configure itself. Application visibility and historical reporting, and of course, guest access. Briefly, just to touch on Aruba and Gartner's quadrant here. You can see we've dramatically shifted over to the right-hand side, which will put us in the leading position. Everything we do is open standards-based, which obviously Gartner like. And last slide before, from Gartner for myself. This was the first time Gartner ever produced a critical capabilities report. You'll see straight away, Aruba, HPE are in the lead in 5 out of the 6 of these categories. When you look closer, you'll actually notice that 5 out of the 6 of these are geared primarily around Wi-Fi, because this is where they see the market is going. It's going to be all Wi-Fi based. The only one they've left us some work to work on is the enterprise wired-only connectivity, but we'll get there. Thank you. Hope you think that was good.